introduction. I'm Duke Doubleday, longtime member here. It's amazing to me that we started these memorials 35 years ago, 1987. I think I was the president by then. I was the third president of the association. But in the early days, fellows, the memorials we were really learning as we went. And the board of directors, a few guys in the board of directors group were assigned to develop prospects, develop first the criteria to be selected as someone that we would honor. And that was a tough deal. We had to trace down families that would be 100% supportive and engaged with us to handle the entire event. And if you'll remember, back in those days, there were so many scams and rip-offs on veterans' families. Many of them were very skeptical. So we had an extra sales job to do, and other families didn't want to go through the reemergence. You know, they didn't want to cough up all that angst and agony that they had when they lost their family member. So we had a job cut out for us. Originally, we sought candidates that had a DFC or a Silver Star as sort of a high water mark to honor. As the years went by, we took away that restriction and reached out to any veteran who lost his life over there. But in the early years, we had no shortage of candidates, and when we found friends and family that would really get behind it, high school classmates, etc., it was important to us. We tried to place these monuments in places where the recipient had lived or gone to school, in the neighborhoods where they were known, to add something to it. A lot of thought went into how we worded the bronze plaques. We thought it was important to add a little bit about whatever the combat action was that took the soldier's life. I think getting that family support was critical. The other thing that we were successful in doing was garnering a ton of media attention. And while I was going around, I was a professional real estate broker, so I had great landlord contacts to pick properties that had a high public profile. The first ones, at Peachtree Center, the Galleria Complex, all over town were places where we knew we'd get high pedestrian traffic to expose the name and the legend that had given his life, from Atlanta, that had sacrificed their life. I think we had, 23 individual deceased soldiers that we honored, and then we did several others that were more of a group nature. But it's 35 years ago. It's a long time. And as the process grew, we developed sort of a template, so it made it much easier, and the press coverage gave us much more awareness around the Atlanta community, and we had landlords calling us to volunteer they wanted to get on our list of possible places to place these. It was just incredible. The media was gun shy about us at first, but after the first couple of memorials, they were calling in advance, wanting to be sure they had maximum resources at each of these events. So, I really reached back, and I thank Ronald Reagan, who became our president in 1981, for putting patriotism back on the top of the list after his predecessor after his predecessor spent 4 years apologizing all over the world for Vietnam. Reagan realized how important it was for our country to recognize the armed forces and its veterans that have served honorably worldwide. So I'll just conclude with saying that these memorials were very emotional for all of us. I became almost a member of the Gary Jones family, who's the soldier that I personally supervised at CNN Center in 1988. He was the second one. John Fuller was the first, and I think there's a list, Max has published on our webpage, of all the subsequent honorees. So with that as sort of an introduction, I'll turn the program back to you, Skip. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, so what we're going to see now, video of some of the earlier memorials that we did.
1.2 million women who have joined the armed services. And tonight, patients at the Veterans Hospital in Decatur were visited by a group called Project Holiday. The volunteers passed out red carnations to the veterans of wars from Vietnam all the way back to World War I.
Richard, we often hear stories about Vietnam veterans who have had a tough time adjusting to life back home. But as TV5's Paul Sims reports, the image of the Vietnam vet is changing now that many have fought their way to the top in business.
And tonight, patients at the Veterans Hospital in Decatur were visited by a group called Project Holiday. The volunteers passed out red carnations to the veterans of wars from Vietnam all the way back to World War I.
Richard, we often hear stories about Vietnam veterans who have had a tough time adjusting to life back home. But as TV5's Paul Sims reports, the image of a Vietnam vet is changing now that many have fought their way to the top in business.
10 years have passed, and for many, the wounds from both the battlefield and heartless homecomings are beginning to heal.
I think a lot of the bitterness has been driven out of us because of the passage of time. And I think there are some other people that positively know that we did make a contribution, regardless of the outcome, whether they agree with it or not.
Sometimes we're portrayed as a generic group of
10 years have passed, and for many, the wounds from both the battlefield and heartless homecomings are beginning to heal.
I think a lot of the bitterness has been driven out of us because of the passage of time. And I think there are some other people that positively know that we did make a contribution, regardless of the outcome, whether they agree with it or not.
Sometimes we're portrayed as a generic group of failures.
In fact, Doubleday is a highly successful real estate executive, and a growing number of Atlanta's Vietnam vets are finding as they talk openly about the war that many of them have made it to the top in big business. Tom Foster now owns a concrete company.
If anybody can survive in the American business world, it'd be a fellow that's been over there and back and came on one great deal more than the present generation about us.
It's a club with a growing membership. Veterans proud of their accomplishments since the war. Veterans now proud to say they served in
Vietnam. We may be nothing more than a mutual admiration society, and we blow our own horn because we appreciate what we did for each other and for our country.
Our history is still being written, and our grandchildren are going to realize a great deal more than the present generations about us.
Association has organized this event, the second in a series of memorial dedication ceremonies to recognize those native Atlantans who lost their lives in Vietnam. Our association is organized to foster patriotism in our community, to honor those who served and those who gave their life in Vietnam. Vietnam and to promote Business Association has organized this event throughout the business community here in Atlanta. The memorial dedication ceremony. The Distinguished Service Cross, recognize those native highest award for bravery, who lost their lives in Vietnam. First Lieutenant Gary Jones. Our association is organized to foster patriotism in our community. Jones distinguished himself by exceptional valorous actions on February 9, 1968. In Vietnam, officer to promote a positive image of the Vietnam veterans, 2nd Brigade, throughout the business community here in Atlanta, conducting a combat mission near Atlanta. The Distinguished Service Cross, our nation's second highest award for bravery, was posthumously awarded to First Lieutenant Gary Jones for services set forth in the following citation. Following artillery strikes on the enemy, Lieutenant Jones deployed his troops and led a fierce and open field, which was the only avenue of approach. Nearing the wood line, the company was subjected to withering automatic weapons, small arms, and rocket fire from the concealed insurgents. Lieutenant Jones fearlessly exposed himself to the savage fusillade as he directed his men to return fire and move to the sparse protection of a nearby berm. He quickly regrouped his troops, positioned them on line, and led a second assault on the Viet Cong. Heedless of a hail of bullets striking all around him, he gallantly pressed the attack. Lieutenant Jones was mortally wounded while shouting words of encouragement and directing devastating fire upon the insurgent fortifications. His dauntless and inspiring leadership in close combat contributed immeasurably to the subsequent defeat of the numerically superior enemy force. First Lieutenant Jones' extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty at the cost of his life were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.
It is of real importance that we retain a very deep and personal understanding of what we really are doing here today, and in so doing, try to remember the inscription in Arlington Cemetery, which reads as follows, quote, "Not for fame or reward, not for place or rank, not lured by ambition or goaded by necessity, but in simple obedience to duty," unquote. Lieutenant Jones went forward, leading his men as he was trained and expected to do. Summarily, he answered the call. Now we've got to remember that those who serve like Lieutenant Jones represent the flower of our nation's most precious resource, the national youth of America. He symbolizes those who went before at the Concord Bridge, at Gettysburg, the Argonne Forest, Normandy, Guadalcanal, New Guinea, the forest of the Ardennes, Pusan, Christmas Hill, and then to Dak To and Zone D and the Michelin Plantation. And finally, we never forget Beirut with the Marines, Grenada, and today the Persian Gulf. Who knows where the next call is going to be? The answer to that incredibly important question is hidden from even the most knowledgeable in our land, but it will come. Sooner or later, the trumpet will sound again, and we can only hope and pray that this time it will be a certain call, clear and distinct, and understood and supported by the people of this great land. And so, ladies and gentlemen and veterans, my notion of Gary Jones embraces his memory both as a soldier and a son, but more importantly, as a symbol of thousands of courageous Americans who answered the call, served and died so that a nation might be unfettered to select its form of government. This world in which you and I live today is a fragile one. It's troubled and overburdened with armed conflict, terrorism, hate, deep-seated ethnic differences, often themselves today the cause of war. This environment cries out for us to daily rededicate ourselves to an America which is physically and morally strong, and in turn dedicated to an honorable peace through our indefinably international strength, while never forgetting our ultimate faith in God, our Father, and the Savior and Master of men. The symbol I speak of, which is personified by Gary Jones, did not fail. The torch was passed to the succeeding generations here represented in this beautiful hall. The standard was set. He and others like him were a special breed. They had the right stuff at the right time. We don't mourn Gary Jones. Instead, we've got to be ever grateful that folks like him lived. I seek to terminate these humble remarks with a quote from Louis Untermeyer, which to me wraps up all of what this means that we're doing today. And I quote, "Summoned by supreme and confident power that wakes our sleeping courage like a blow, we rise half shaken to the challenging hour and answer it and go. Thus, this monument to a fallen hero stands really as a symbol of trust and faith by those who met the challenge and went, stiffening and strengthening our national resolve to keep the faith and hold high that flag on which we place our sacred honor.
Robert Sauls died in Vietnam 20 years ago.
But this afternoon, the Riverdale native was remembered at the dedication of a memorial in his honor. Skycam pilot reporter Bruce Arian was there.
This stately sculpture at Peachtree Center is now a permanent memorial to an Atlanta hero. Chief Warrant Officer Robert Sauls was killed in action March 11, 1969, while trying to rescue an injured comrade. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for that extraordinary heroism. Among those attending today's ceremony, Robert's wife Nancy and his son Robert Jr. He was just 3 months old when his dad died.
I know that someday a young child will be holding his father's hand. He will read about Robert Sauls, and he will start to understand those things about duty, honor, country, and manhood. It will be that same youth that will continue to guarantee the freedom of this nation.
Today's dedication ceremony also brought together dozens of fellow Vietnam vets, their gray flannel suits now taking the place of jungle fatigues.
This is the price that we have to pay for our freedoms, and each generation must have to pay that price. And people that come to see this marker, it'll be here, will get that sense, the commitment, the sacrifice.
Today's dedication was sponsored by the Vietnam Veterans Business Association, a group of local area businessmen, Vietnam vets themselves. They try to promote the positive aspects of being a Vietnam vet, and Johnny Kelly, I don't think they could have picked a better role model than Robert Sauls.
No, his family must have been very, very proud. Thanks very much, Bruce.
So I've got actually one more video, and then I'm going to call an audible, and we'll do the USO raffle. Following that, how many of y'all went to the 40th anniversary?
The Atlanta Vietnam Veterans Business Association.
Okay, I'm going to run the photographs that we took of the then and now. Okay, sorry.
Our association is organized to honor those.
How's that? Is that better? So anyway, once we get done with the raffle, if you want to leave, you can leave, or if you want to watch, there's about 22 minutes of the photographs of the then and now things, and also a number of the other AVVBA events over the last 40 years. So, and if you're having trouble sleeping, maybe that'll help you too. But don't sleep and drive. So we're gonna, sir. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna play right now. And then after we play this, then then we'll do the.
the face without a name that heeds the call. And if you weren't there, there'd be no one at all for life and love you serve without the praise you deserve. All the unsung heroes.
That's a Cobra rotor blade.
As the wind blows, shall be blessed, for God He knows all the unsung heroes. Sometimes you feel no one knows you're even there, but the wheels wouldn't turn if you